Arbor Drugs was a chain of drugstores based in Troy, Michigan that opened in 1974 and was sold off in 1998. Thank you for your suggestion.
Why do so many senior citizens come to Arbor Drugs?
Dose Check Plus. Every time I get a new prescription, I get this printout for free. It tells me all about my medication and how to take it.
I like Arbor's free medication ID card. It helps me keep track of all my medications.
I go to Arbor when I can, but when I can't, they come to me with Arbor Home Delivery.
Dose Check Plus, medical ID cards, and home delivery, all free at Arbor. Come see the difference.
Eugene Applebaum, the founder and president of Arbor Drugs, opened his first drugstore in 1963, shortly after graduating from pharmacy college. Called Civic Drugs, the small store was located in a somewhat run-down east side of Dearborn, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit. By 1974, he had purchased 5 more stores in the greater Detroit area and decided it was time to incorporate. He named his new corporation Arbor Drugs after his Ann Arbor-based store and began to create an image for his new chain of drugstores. Applebaum made the decision early on in the growth of his chain that Arbor would focus on prescription drugs and personal care products. During the 1970s and early 80s, a number of drugstore executives had begun to worry that traditional drugstore items, like cosmetics and personal care products, were increasingly being sold by large discount stores. Since most drugstores could not compete on price with these discounters, chain managers felt that they too must diversify. Drugstores began to experiment with such diverse goods and services as dry cleaning, electronic equipment, and video rental. Arbor's main competitor in Michigan was Perry Drugs. They even ventured into the auto care business, introducing an extended line of automotive products and services, with very limited success. Instead, Applebaum decided to stick with more traditional drugstore items. In the 1960s, at his original Civic drugstore, Applebaum had experimented with selling records and learned that such fashion-driven markets could be wildly unpredictable. In 1979, the chain was one of the first to offer computerized prescriptions, and by 1989, the entire chain's records were linked together. By early 1981, Arbor had grown to 19 stores, and later that year the company acquired 11 former Cunningham Drugs locations for a total of 30 Arbor Drug units. Over the course of the next 5 years, the drugstore chain acquired 22 more stores and began its transformation from a small local chain to a major regional presence. In 1986, Applebaum decided that the time was right to take his company public in order to finance further expansion. Arbor Drugs was able to increase its rate of expansion and add 10 to 15 new Arbor stores a year in Michigan through the 1980s, the Sentry chain in 1986, and the M&R chain in 1994. Toward the end of the 1980s, as Arbor's profits and assets grew, the company was able to finance and build an increasing number of freestanding stores. This allowed the chain to expand without relying on retail mall real estate developers or acquisitions. The bulk of Arbor's acquisitions and new stores were located in southeastern Michigan, particularly in the Detroit area, where Perry Drugs had a relatively weak presence. Part of Arbor's strength lay in the company's willingness and ability to expand into neighborhoods that were considered questionable by other chains. Large drugstore chains like Arbor Drugs could offer price advantages over their smaller independent counterparts, not only because of their high volumes, but also because of their access to insurance company prescription payment plans, which frequently excluded independent drugstores. As Arbor grew into a large chain in the 1980s, management decided to emphasize pharmacy service by placing the prescription counter in all of the stores to the center rear at the end of the wide aisle, so that it could be clearly visible from the entrance of the store. The pharmacy enclosure was also open, not glassed in as it was in its rival Perry stores, so that the pharmacist would appear more accessible to the public. A scandal broke out in July of 1993 when it was revealed that the chain had overcharged the health insurance company Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association of at least $17 million in prescriptions since 1988. The two sides later settled for $15 million, but only 1 year later, Arbor was once again involved in a controversy of overcharging Medicaid claims. Eventually, all charges, both criminal and civil, were dropped. By 1994, the 154 Arbor Drug stores posted sales totaling over $618 million, at an average of $4.1 million per store. By 1997, the drugstore chain was the nation's 8th largest, having 207 locations throughout southeastern Michigan. In 1997, revenues totaled $962 million. On February 9, 1998, after 35 years in business, Eugene sold Arbor Drugs to CVS Corporation for an estimated $1.48 billion and created the largest chain drug retailer in the process. Although most Arbor Drug locations were converted to CVS, several of these stores were later shuttered by the CVS Corporation. So what are your favorite memories of this place? Leave a comment or a suggestion for a future video below. Thanks for watching.